In the quiet, pre-dawn hours of a city, most people are safe in their beds. But in 2022, for the residents of Stockton, California, the darkness held a new and terrifying threat. A series of seemingly random, brutal attacks left the community paralyzed with fear. The victims were ordinary people, going about their lives, targeted in the shadows with no apparent motive. As the official police investigation scrambled for leads, a very different kind of hunt was gathering momentum online. On platforms like TikTok, Facebook, and Reddit, thousands of self-proclaimed digital detectives began their own investigation, poring over grainy footage, connecting disparate dots, and, in some cases, pointing fingers at innocent people. This is the story of the Stockton serial killer, a case that gripped a nation. But it's also a story about what happens when the line between citizen concern and dangerous speculation becomes irrevocably blurred. It's a modern parable that forces us to ask a critical question. In the age of social media, where does civic duty end and reckless digital vigilantism begin? Welcome to Vanishing Threads. Today we're exploring the case of the Stockton serial killer and the complex, often chaotic, digital firestorm that surrounded it. The story begins not in 2022, but more than a year earlier, and not in Stockton, but 50 miles away in Oakland. On the 10th of April 2021, a 40-year-old man named Juan Vasquez Serrano was shot and killed. The case generated few leads and eventually went cold. 6 days later, back in Stockton, a 46-year-old woman named Natasha Latour was sleeping in a tent when she was shot multiple times. She heard someone walking around her campsite before the attack, but saw nothing. Miraculously, she survived, but the incident remained an unsolved mystery. For 448 days, there was silence. The two events, separated by distance and time, seemed entirely unrelated. The city of Stockton had no idea it was on the precipice of a reign of terror. Then came the summer of 2022. The violence returned, this time with a horrifying regularity. On the 8th of July, 35-year-old Paul Yore was killed. His mother described him as a sweet boy, a good man with a big heart. He was unhoused and his life was taken from him in a place he considered safe. Just over a month later, on the 11th of August, another life was stolen. Salvador Debude Jr., 43 years old, was a father and a husband. His family remembered him as a man full of energy and love, a constant presence at family gatherings. He was shot and killed in a parking lot, leaving behind a family to grapple with a senseless loss. The city was on edge, but the pattern was not yet clear to the public. On the 30th of August, Jonathan Rodriguez Hernandez, a 21-year-old, was killed inside his car. His family was devastated, describing him as a great son and brother who was loved by all. Less than a month later, on the 21st of September, 52-year-old Juan Cruz was killed. He was a loving grandfather, a man who had worked hard his entire life. And just 6 days after that, on the 27th of September, the killer struck again. Lawrence Lopez Sr., 54, was a musician and an aspiring record producer, a father of 6 known affectionately as Lorenzo. His brother described him as just a person who was out here at the wrong place at the wrong time. The victims were diverse in age and background, but the method was chillingly consistent. They were mostly, but not exclusively, Hispanic men. They were ambushed in the dark, often while walking alone or sitting in their cars. The attacks were swift, brutal, and executed with a cold precision. Nothing was ever stolen, ruling out robbery as a motive. The only tangible connection was the terrifying randomness of the violence and, as investigators would later confirm, the ballistics evidence linking each tragic scene. By late September, fear had turned into palpable panic. The streets of Stockton, a city of over 300,000 people, grew quiet at night. Residents who once walked freely now stayed indoors, locking their doors and looking at strangers with suspicion. The Stockton Police Department, working with a multi-agency task force that included the FBI, was facing immense pressure. On the 30th of September, Police Chief Stanley McFadden held a press conference that confirmed the community's worst fears. The string of 2022 murders were connected. A serial killer was active on their streets. The announcement was a turning point. The police force was inundated with tips, over 100 in the first few days alone. They established a dedicated hotline and pleaded with the public for any information, no matter how small. Their most crucial piece of evidence was a grainy, almost spectral piece of surveillance footage. It showed a person of interest, a tall, slim figure with an unnervingly uneven stride, dressed in dark clothing from head to toe. The footage was released to the public, and the image of this loping figure became a symbol of the city's fear. The reward for information that could lead to an arrest climbed from $85,000 to $125,000. The hunt was on, both on the streets and online. As the official investigation intensified, so did the unofficial one. This is where the story takes a sharp turn into the complex, murky world of internet sleuthing. Facebook groups like Stockton, California, Active Crime, Police Scanner, Fires swelled with thousands of new members. Reddit threads on subreddits like True Crime and Unresolved Mysteries buzzed with theories, amateur analysis of the surveillance footage, and speculation that ranged from insightful to wildly irresponsible. But it was on TikTok where the case truly became a viral phenomenon. The short-form video app, with its powerful algorithm, is designed for rapid information dissemination. True crime content has always been popular on the platform, but the Stockton case felt different. It was happening in real time. For many, it felt like they could be part of the solution. This is where a TikTok creator named Ken Wax entered the narrative. Wax, who had amassed over 1 million followers, began posting videos about the case. He didn't just report on the known facts. He claimed to be actively investigating it himself. His videos connected the Stockton killings to a wider, largely discredited and unsubstantiated theory known as the smiley face killers. This theory posits that a gang of killers is responsible for the deaths of numerous young men found in bodies of water across the United States over the past few decades. Wax's videos, which presented his theories with an air of authority, gained millions of views. To his supporters, he was a maverick investigator, a digital David taking on a Goliath of a case, potentially uncovering truths the police might have missed. They praised his dedication and his willingness to explore unconventional leads. But to a growing number of critics, he was a prime example of the profound ethical pitfalls of the true crime genre, especially in the age of social media. The situation, which was quickly dubbed the Kentroversy, escalated when viewers and other creators noticed that Wax was promoting his own social media startup, Foresight, within his investigative videos. The question became unavoidable. Was this about seeking justice for the victims, or was it a cynical marketing ploy capitalizing on a city's tragedy for clicks, engagement, and personal profit? The backlash was swift and severe. Other true crime creators and online commentators accused him of exploiting the case for clout. Wax and his startup eventually parted ways, but the debate he had ignited was far from over. The Kentroversy became a case study in the very real dangers of digital vigilantism. Amateur sleuths, operating without the training, accountability, or ethical guidelines that govern professional law enforcement, can do incredible harm. They can inhibit official investigations by flooding police hotlines with baseless tips. They can spread dangerous misinformation that takes on a life of its own. And, perhaps most cruelly, they can inflict immense and unnecessary pain on the victims' families, who are forced to see their loved ones become characters in a viral drama. The line between raising awareness and exploiting trauma had become dangerously, almost invisibly, thin. While the internet churned with theories, accusations, and counter-accusations, the real breakthrough in the case came not from a viral video, but from traditional, methodical police work combined with genuine community vigilance. On the 15th of October 2022, just after 2 a.m., a team of Stockton police officers were on patrol. They had received tips from vigilant members of the public that led them to focus on a man named Wesley Brownlee. They located him in his car, driving through the city's darkened streets. They began to surveil him. According to Police Chief Stanley McFadden, Brownlee's behavior was deeply unsettling. He was driving through residential areas, stopping, looking around and moving on. He was, in the chief's chilling words, out hunting. The surveillance team watched as he pulled into a park. He was dressed in black, had a mask pulled down around his neck, and was armed with a firearm. The police, believing he was about to claim another victim, made the decision to intervene. They arrested him without incident. "We are sure we stopped another killing," Chief McFadden stated at a press conference later that day. The city of Stockton breathed a collective sigh of relief. The arrest was a direct result of tips from the public, people who had seen the police reports and the surveillance footage and had provided credible, actionable information. It was not the result of any viral TikTok theories. Wesley Brownlee, a 43-year-old man with a criminal history, was later charged with 7 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder, with prosecutors using ballistics evidence to link him back to the initial, long-forgotten attacks in 2021. The Stockton serial killer case was, for all intents and purposes, solved. A suspect was in custody and a city could begin to heal. But the case leaves us with a critical and deeply modern question. What is the true role of social media in the landscape of criminal justice? There is no simple answer. Online communities can be, and often are, a powerful force for good. They can raise awareness of cold cases, provide a space for people to share information, and foster a sense of collective responsibility. The police themselves relied on public tips to ultimately catch Wesley Brownlee, but the story of the TikTok sleuths and the controversy serves as a potent cautionary tale. When the pursuit of content, clicks, and personal notoriety overshadows the pursuit of truth and justice, a new and insidious kind of harm is introduced into an already tragic situation. It highlights a new kind of digital ethics that we, as a society, must all learn to navigate. The desire to help is understandable, even commendable. But without the rigorous training, the strict accountability, and the unwavering ethical guidelines that govern professional law enforcement, the digital mob can all too easily become a force of chaos, not justice. The hunt for a killer in Stockton was terrifyingly real, but the parallel hunt for online relevance that ran alongside it revealed a darker, more complicated side of our hyper-connected world. Thanks for tuning in. As always, stay curious, stay safe.